Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Diana.
I'm just making sure we're recording here. Oh, it's recording. So, I'm Diana Bose from Fabulous at 50, and I would like to introduce to you today Wendy Rocks, Dr. Wendy Rocks, that I met in Los Barrelas in the Baja earlier this year, I guess. Was it March?
I think, yeah, it could have been, yeah, it was March, yeah.
March.
Yeah.
We met by the pool. We were kind of eyeing each other up because we both recognized some energy, and we had a great conversation. But getting to know Wendy, Wendy is from South Africa and has lived in Australia, right? Wendy,
Yes.
how long did you live in Australia?
I think, probably about 10 years. I did my medical school there.
So she went to medical school when her daughter was 3 years old, and she was a single mom. So quite an achievement, with that opportunity. And she's been working as a GP in British Columbia in the rural areas, primarily with oncology patients. Is that correct?
Well, yes, I started doing family practice locums, and I still do remote work to communities that can't get a doctor. So every other year I'll cover some community for Christmas who doesn't have a doctor for a few weeks. But the last 10 years, and I've done a lot of emergency medicine, and in the last 10 years I've been doing sort of part-time general practitioner in oncology and running the Penticton Clinic until recently, so that we can give our patients chemotherapy so they don't have to drive to the big center.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And when we met in Los Barrelas, we had an incredibly long talk that by the end of it, we're both very dehydrated. We talked so much.
Obviously, the barman didn't bring us our margaritas.
No, I can't believe that. But another thing that really interests me is that not only, have you gone that direction, but you're also very knowledgeable about plant-based diets and, that kind of direction with health as well. So you're very open-minded.
Yes.
And I've got incredible knowledge, and I couldn't get enough of you when we sat by the pool that day talking. So we've kept in contact. The biggest thing for me is that, you have never let age stop you at any point. Like, going to school, learning to free dive, which that is how I noticed you, Wendy, is because I saw you dive into the pool, but I didn't see you get out of the pool. And so I kind of stopped, and I was like, where did she, is she a ninja or what? Where did she go? But you were still in the water. And then all of a sudden you popped out, and that water was cold.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? I don't even think
water is my happy place.
Yes.
Underwater.
Yeah. So we had an opportunity to talk about the thing that we both have a tremendous passion for, and that is about living your best life and just that zest for living, that zest for making a difference in the world. And I think that was the energy that really attracted each other. And you have got some amazing things happening. You have a new website that you just launched called the saltwaterdoctor.ca.
.com. TheSaltwaterDoctor.com. Yeah.
Yes. And I'll make sure that everybody gets that at the end as well. And you're going to be doing some incredible things. You've got some retreats sent up. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got to that point with wanting to do these retreats and what you're going to be doing at the retreats?
Okay. Well, yes, as you know, I'm very excited about it. So my work in emergency medicine and oncology, which seem very diverse areas, they actually pushed me into this, because in emergency medicine, I would see people coming in with heart attacks and strokes, and knowing that a lot of those, unfortunately, are a lot of the cause behind that is lifestyle. We're not eating properly, we're not exercising, our arteries are clogging up, we're smoking, whatever the things are. And smoking always gets a very bad rap. And it used to be the biggest cause of death and mortality. But actually, interestingly, our Western diet has now overtaken smoking as the number one cause. So I was seeing that in emergency. And then in oncology, unfortunately, again, a lot of cancers, not all of them, but a lot of them are contributed to largely by a Western diet. And then patients started asking me, what should they eat? And I'm really embarrassed to admit that in the beginning I used to say, oh, it doesn't matter. And then one day I thought, oh, what am I saying? So I started researching it all, and then I came across the wonders of the whole food plant-based diet. And I started adopting that for myself. And it was a slow process. I started with tofu Tuesdays and then meatless Mondays and started Googling recipes. And I've never been a good cook. And suddenly I found myself really enjoying cooking as well, and realizing that instead of seeing cooking as a chore and like, oh, let's just get takeaways, just that thing of at the end of a day, chopping veggies, I actually found it kind of almost meditative. And then you put something on to saute, and I could go and do some exercise while my lovely soup or stew was sort of simmering. And that suddenly became like, oh, this is a way of nourishing myself. And then because I was getting interested with all the information, I studied with Cornell University on their certificate of plant-based nutrition. And that was just like one of those explosive moments. Like, this all makes sense. And just finding out such simple things like estrogen positive breast cancer is driven by dairy. In China and Japan, women barely ever got breast cancer. And people used to say, well, they're Japanese or Chinese, they have different genes to us. But what happened was once the Western diet started coming in the 70s and the 80s and 90s, their rates of breast cancer just started skyrocketing. And the same with prostate cancer for men. And one of the biggest links behind that was dairy products because of the natural hormone in cow's milk. So that's how I got started. So then I started having talks, and then I had little group sessions. I was invited to be the preventative health consultant for our firefighters. So that was a big thing. You can imagine talking to these big firefighter guys about eating more veggies. And that's going really well. I've been invited to speak at their conferences because they have a higher risk of cancer than other people because of their profession. But really, the added risk from the way they're eating is actually higher than the chemical exposure risk. And then one day I had a flash of insight and thought, let's get people to the beach because everyone feels better at the beach. So my idea became that let's have retreats where I could have a chef cook healthy, wonderful plant-based meals. You might notice that I'm not mentioning the word vegan, and I'm doing that for a reason because the word can be very polarizing. People might think of, people with very strong opinions about animal rights who attack you for wearing leather shoes. And so I'm trying to stick with the food and the health, for the food for health, and also for the environment, because that's become a big thing for me. So, for example, I will, and vegans might attack me for this, I will occasionally have some goat's cheese on a spinach salad. Once in a blue moon, I might treat myself to ice cream. But when I say once in a blue moon, it's once or twice a year. It's not 2 or 3 times a week. So for everyone, I'd say, and again, with whole food plant-based, that is telling you real food. You can be a vegan and live on potato chips and Oreo cookies, and you're vegan, yes, but you're not eating healthily. So all of these things are important.
Mm-hmm. I so agree. I've actually became a vegetarian a year ago, and I would say I'm probably about 80% plant-based. I still occasionally have a bit of cheese, but I don't really even eat yogurt anymore. And I have to say, I feel so much better.
Yes.
My body, I used to have so many digestive issues, and that's all gone. And, I still do, ice cream once in a while. I still have a glass of wine once in a while, but, I juice, I eat and drink a lot of veggies.
Yeah.
And it's been, and you're right, it is a slow process, right?
Yeah, some people do it instantaneously. I have people, who I wouldn't even expect to go that way, who might have a terminal cancer, and even their friends are rude enough to say, why are you bothering? You only have a few months to live. So everyone has their personal level. Other people will start slowly and gradually build up. I think the biggest thing is I like to be encouraging, not critical or judgmental, because that doesn't help anybody. And also just try and get every person to that stage where they're happy to start trying it. And I think that's where the retreats come in, because the first thing is a lot of people, when they think of vegan, they're like, oh, what is that? Lettuce and a tomato or something. And unfortunately, until recently, restaurants would do that if you asked for a vegan meal. And it was like, that's not a meal, it's a side dish. Now restaurants are coming to the party a bit more. And again, I'd also sort of just be caution against eating too much processed things. Like the Beyond Meat burger is fantastic. It is vegan, but again, it's processed, so it would be a treat meal as opposed to Like mostly I don't use meat substitute products. I just eat real food. So the chickpea stews, the lentils, there's a million things, and there's a million free recipes out there which are amazing. So on my retreats, people come and get given the most delicious food. So for them to be able to go, oh wow, I can eat 3 times a day food that I love, and are shocked to hear that it's 100% plant-based. And then in the mornings, so every day we have a slightly different theme. So for example, the first day would be the introduction to plant-based eating, the health aspects of it and how to do it. We finish the mornings with, because of my freediving background, I want to incorporate relaxation techniques. And because I'm a free diver, I like to do those in the water. And I've done that with people, and it's wonderful seeing people who start out even afraid to put their face underwater, who end up swimming a whole length underwater, and just the joy on their face, because it's about relaxation. If you relax and get into the moment, suddenly you're not struggling for that breath that you don't really need after 5 seconds underwater. The afternoons are free, and we'll organize trips according to people's interests. And every afternoon, 1 or 2 of the guests will have a personal 1.5-hour session with me talking about their preventative health needs. Then in the evening after dinner, we wrap up that day's theme with I really like to get the group going. It's not that in the morning I'm not going to be lecturing people for 1.5 hours. I might do a half-hour talk and then really encourage a lot of discussion, because people will have a lot of questions. So we have a day on plant-based eating. We have a day on finding your purpose, your community, another day on community. Every morning, and I'm trying to use locals as much as possible. So in Mexico, we have a young Mexican person who will take the guests for a walk in the morning on the beach. Because a lot of people, I find that interesting in my medical practice. I'll say to people, do you exercise? And they'll be all guilty. Oh, no, I don't. And then later on, I found out they're walking their dog for an hour a day. And yes. That is exercise.
Yes.
You're looking at the blue zone approach. The healthiest people are people that exercise as part of their daily routine, who spend time with friends, who have a purpose. And we can incorporate all of these things into our life. You don't have to live by the beach, although that's my preference. But for example, yourself, Danny, you say you love to ski, so you could even just go for a snowshoe. You can adapt things to people's individual health, and that is exercise. It doesn't have to be part of a big club or something. So that's the theme. So for example, in Los Barriles in Mexico, it's beautiful because just outside our villa, we have a little turtle hatchery, which has been started by 2 Mexican brothers.
Right.
Without, getting funds from it. Because a lot of people think, oh, I don't know what to do and I don't have funds. Just start something. These guys just took it on themselves to protect the turtles in Las Barriles. Every single day they go and find where turtles have laid their eggs. They dig them up and put them in their safe sanctuary that's surrounded by, a wire fence so that people can't get in. They're not going to be ridden over by quad bikes. The seagulls can't attack them. And then every morning they release and they tag them. So what a wonderful example of how you can do something in your own community without help, and something that really excites you and that, is worthwhile.
Right.
And the benefit that you get from that is amazing. So we have, as I say, we have those little themes every day. And then after dinner, we have a little wrap up of the day of, okay, so you might be interested in starting a recycling thing at your home, in your hometown. How are we going to do that when you go home? So we give them practical ways of, when they go home, how so often you come home, I'm so inspired.
Yes.
And it's like, and then nothing happens.
Yes.
And then we feel even worse about ourselves. So this is going to give you a tool that when you're going to go home, you're going to start that composting thing, or you're going to start the recycling thing, or you might help with making breakfast for children in your town. There's always something, no matter how small the town, that you could do just with yourself and a couple of friends and Facebook. And so obviously we pick up people at the airport, whisk them down to the villa, and it's just beautiful. Las Barriles, you walk in and you just see this wonderful sea view. So I'm hoping, first of all, my first passion was to get people maybe who'd had some health scare or illness, like a heart attack. They've finished their cancer treatment. I see a lot of my patients, particularly the breast cancer patients, because these are women that felt well and then found a lump and then were made sick by our treatment. So at the end of treatment, the oncologist goes, off you go, be healthy.
Yes.
And they're sort of spinning because you think, well, I thought I was healthy and then I got this breast lump. It's a little bit different with people that start feeling unwell and then are diagnosed with their cancer. There's a kind of a different process for them. So I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful for that 60-year-old woman with her 2 daughters and her sister and her friend, all of whom are wondering, especially the family members, am I going to get that cancer? And I get asked that question a lot. And for most of these women, it's actually not a genetic. So the reason their daughter's going to get it is because, unfortunately, she's as overweight as her mother, has eaten dairy her whole life, hasn't done any exercise, drinks too much wine, all of the things that contribute towards the trigger.
Right.
So what we say is the genes is like loading the gun. That's your genetic. And really, it's a very small component of most cancers. But it's your lifestyle that pulls the trigger. So you could have the genes, but if you ate healthily and exercised and had very, minimal alcohol, you've totally reduced that risk of those genes ever being expressed as a cancer. So that was my first idea, was for people post-illness, or especially post-chemo. And I still think that is a great way, for people to come down. So then my assistant, who's a lot younger than me and is healthy, she said, well, we don't only want people to be able to come if they're sick, because a lot of women might want to come that are healthy but just want to get their mojo happening. So we've now targeted a lot of different groups. Bachelorette parties. Not everyone wants to go and get blotto and drunk for a week. A lot of young 30-year-olds are interested in the environment or doing something at home. So we're targeting people like that, certainly people after illness, and then just any fabulous women and men who want to come and just feel like, yes, basically, how do I get my mojo back? How do I get some interest going in my life? I just feel like life is just ticking over.
Yeah, and sometimes, it's just and it's the influence of the other women in the group as well. You never know.
Exactly. That's what I find with group work. Often I can just start, and then there's all these wonderful women, and once they get talking, I almost just act as a facilitator. As I say, I'm not there to lecture. Yes, I'm a source of knowledge in certain things, but as you know, when you bring women together, we all have something to bring to the table, and that wonderful energy that you get, and then people go home from these things with new lifelong friends, right? That you know that you're going to stay in, like you and I, we met one day, right? And we know we're going to stay in touch forever. And I think that's really special. So I'm offering in Las Barillas and also the Bahamas on Eleuthera. And as things take off, we might say, well, 2021, we're going to be in Greece. So we can have these, the weeks are called Reset Your Life weeks. But it's just slowly. And at the moment, until the end of the year, we're having a special. If anyone comes to me and says, I've got 5 friends that are all going to pay, that person can come for free.
Awesome.
So that's a draw card. And for Canadians, again, till the end of the year, we're offering a 20% discount because of the how weak our dollar is against the US dollar.
Well, it sounds amazing. I recommend that everybody goes to your website and takes a look, gets on your mailing list, because you do have a mailing list set up.
Yeah.
Even if maybe this one is, the one's coming up or too soon, I desperately want to go.
Well, you're a busy woman, Diana. It's hard fitting it in, hey?
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on right now, but you never know. I find that when I set my intention for things, sometimes they magically happen. So.
Well, that's what I find. Like, I've wanted to be a doctor at a freediving competition for years now. And just a couple of weeks ago, I got an email from the top competition in the world, Vertical Blue, which is held in the Bahamas, where I trained, asking if I would be the doctor on their medical team. So it was just boggling. It was like open up to the universe, and that came in.
Yeah, I always used to say, when trying to manifest something, I'd always ask for that or better.
Yes,
yes. Like that or better, because sometimes, depending on how we've been brought up, our vision may not be big enough.
It's not.
For the reality.
We make ourselves small, and we're so sort of grateful for any little scraps that are dropped at our feet. And that's ridiculous. Like, I just think, live
me all the way.
Yeah.
I've always
loud, be greedy. I just bought a little plaque that says, I want it all and I want it delivered. And that's my new mantra.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to a concert tonight, and it's at the other end of town, and you can imagine our roads here it's been snowing since yesterday. And I'm thinking, I might have to manifest myself a ride to this concert, because I'm not sure I want to drive there and back.
A little spaceship.
A little helicopter. Yeah. So how old are you now, Wendy?
I've just turned 59.
59. Oh my gosh. I would have never guessed that. But you just only started free diving like in your early 50s, right?
At 57.
Oh my gosh.
I was on a course with a 22-year-old girl. It was fabulous, because I was the one, because I was just there for the joy of it, and she got sort of stressed into the overachieving part of it. So I ended up diving way deeper than her, was her mentor, and it was just the most wonderful experience, I think, for both of us. I don't think they knew how old I was either, but they still thought I was ancient because, you know, she was 22.
In the water, how do you know in the water?
Yeah.
It's a
Well, that's the other thing, right? Being in the water, you can do, for me, longevity of being able to do things because it's so gentle on your body. So you can, you know, you can stay very active and fit and just have so much fun in the water. And that's what I want to show people with, I've actually bought a little house in Mexico near where the villa is, and I've built a beautiful long pool so that all my participants can get their little first mermaid wings, as so to speak, or mermaid tail, by showing themselves how far actually they can swim underwater safely. So I think that's going to be a big part of it.
I'm going to have to give that a shot because it's funny when you say that. It brings back a memory to when my kids were little and we used to go to BC to the Okanagan. And I remember we used to paint their faces all with zinc,
Yeah.
you know, bright colored zinc, so we could see them out in the water. And that is how my kids learned to swim, was by swimming underwater.
That's right. It's much easier swimming underwater than on top because you're not worrying about your arms flailing around and trying to breathe and all that kind of thing. So what I do is I put fins on people and a mask and then show them how to relax, and then they get that beautiful feeling of being weightless without all the splashing and inhaling foam and all that kind of stuff. So people absolutely love it.
Yeah. Now that sounds like something I need to investigate. The free
So
diving.
as I say, I mean, the big thing is private groups are fantastic because you can get your own group together and then we can curate the week for you. So if your group's interested in kite surfing, we can arrange a discount on kite surfing lessons, and every afternoon you could go and kite surf. Or if you're more interested in a nice wine tasting, you know, Las Barillas has got some beautiful ranch nearby. So according to what your group wants to do, we can arrange things for you. And then the whole week can be, if you want to speak more about the food or the cancer care, you know, we can take more time that week on that. So that's why it's great with the personal groups, because you're not trying to be all things to everybody. They can really say, these are the things we're interested in, and the group can just go along, you know, as the conversation goes. We can pick up on those kind of things and spend more time on what they're all interested, which we can do on the other groups as well. But sometimes if other people are like, well, it said here Wednesday was, you know, we were doing this, then they tend to want you to stick to the program a bit more.
Well, it's nice that you're flexible on that because, you know, people do have different interests, but it's always nice to try some things that are outside of your zone too, right?
Exactly.
Kite surfing, I'm not sure. I watched those guys. They're pretty amazing.
Well, I started learning that last time I was there.
Did you?
So, yes, I've managed to stand on the board for probably about a half a second each time before falling back. And I've done a lot of sports, and it's definitely been the hardest learning curve of any sport I've done. And I've windsurfed and hang glided and done all sorts of things. So I'm going there next week. So this visit, my aim is to get up and actually stand on the board and ride it. So we'll see if we'll send videos.
Yeah, send me videos. I'd love to see that. Wendy, you know, I said this to you earlier, but really I am so grateful that I met you and that we didn't just ignore that, you know, we weren't sitting as a lot of people do. You never know who's sitting beside you.
Exactly.
And I always say that, you know, you take a look around. Sometimes I met so many amazing people at the Pescadora Hotel where we met.
Just by saying hello.
Just by saying hello, I met actually amazing. Well, and there's a big community there that shows up there every night.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, what's the Cheers? I always say, you know, like the show Cheers, where everybody meets at night. It's kind of like that there.
Absolutely. And there's so many interesting people that go to that tiny town. It's amazing.
So, yeah, it's incredible. It's become a spot for us for sure to visit every year. But thank you again. We will be sharing the information of your events along with this video. And, you know, I hope people sign up for your e-newsletter, even if they can't come this time, because I see this as something that's so needed. It's so needed. We need to bring people together, you know, for health reasons, mental health, physical health, you know.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big things that's different about this is I don't want people to come there. You know, so often women go on health retreats to lose weight.
Yes.
And the big focus, and this is not the focus of that at all. It's about feeling fabulous at any age,
Yes.
and real health, which is not measured by the numbers on the scale, and which is another way that women have been tyrannized for so long. Like I remember, as a young woman going to work one day in a foul mood, and I couldn't remember why. And later that evening, I walked into my bathroom, and I remembered I'd stood on the scale, and it had told me I'd put on, a pound or something, and I was ridiculously slim at that stage, but it had affected my entire day, and I think that's something we need to get away from in a big way.
You could do a whole recording
Yes.
just on that, because that has
We'll
been,
do that next time.
yeah, that has been like my nemesis my whole life.
Of course.
It's bad because you see the way the world is. Although I am seeing that there is an emphasis going back on, just being healthy. And
Yes. There is a little shift, but we all know still that it's almost like the bigger you are, the smaller your worth becomes in the eyes of society. And if you add age into that, and that's what we're fighting against. So you hit 50 and it's like we've become invisible. And we need to turn that on its head. I mean, it's quite interesting because in Europe, older women are respected more and sort of still seen as sexual, interesting beings. So it's really nice if you visit France and that, you get a lot of attention still where you wouldn't get the same kind of attention in North America, unfortunately.
yeah, and media, magazines, and the whole social media thing around actors and how we'll do anything an actor does.
Yes.
Someone famous. I just went to see Judy, the movie about Judy Garland last
Oh,
night.
yes, I saw that. Yeah.
That's her whole story. I mean, she was virtually starved.
Yes.
She didn't eat. Everything was regulated by drugs to be awake, be asleep, be whatever. And how much more successful, and she died so young.
Yeah.
She lived so much longer and shared her beautiful gift with the world if she would have looked after herself.
Yeah, I know. Well, unfortunately, I experienced that. I modeled in my 20s and I was very slim, and I was always being told to lose weight, or I was too thin or too fat or too old or too young, all in the same day.
Yes.
What do you think that does for your weight? You'd go to 4 different castings, and one you'd be too old for and one you'd be too young for. Instead of just saying, you're not right for what we're looking for today.
Yeah, exactly.
People were very critical, and they felt they had the right, because you're a model, to just pull you to pieces. So when I look back at those pictures, I'm like, oh, if I look like that now, I'd walk around naked all day, but I was cringing the whole time and hating myself.
I often talk about that, with ladies within the fabulous at 50, how hard they are in themselves. Doesn't matter what age, so you're 60 years old and you look back to when you were 40 and you think, wow,
I know,
I was so slim or beautiful or whatever, but yet at that time,
you're hating it.
You hated it. And yet when you were 40, you were looking back when you were 25. And so we're always looking back instead of looking at this moment and saying, yeah, I'm not perfect and I am 60, but I still have beautiful eyes. Or instead of what we don't have, we need to focus on what we do have.
Well, I think we should do a podcast on that topic, because I think it's amazing. Okay, we'll plan that for maybe early New Year.
Yeah, let's do that.
Go New Year, looking forward, new you.
It's a plan.
Well,
Wendy, thank you very much, and I'll be sending this out to the group with your information and your website and everything. And thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with you in Mexico. I hope
too.
Very soon.
Thank you so much for having me on here. Love you. You're doing amazing things, and we'll talk soon.
You bet. Thanks.
Okay. Bye then.